I thought my money problem after 70 was inflation. It turned out to be my own house. One weekday around 2 in the afternoon, I'm looking for one paper to make a simple payment. Just one. I open a kitchen drawer, then a hallway box, then an old folder in the living room, then another stack in the garage. 40 minutes turns into more than an hour, and I'm still digging. That's when it hit me. I wasn't running my life anymore. My stuff was running it. And if your days feel full but strangely unproductive, this might be you too. Not because you're lazy, because every object comes with a small job, a small decision, a small cost, and they pile up until you're tired before lunch. I'm not saying this as an expert. I still hesitate with certain things, especially family items. I still have moments where I think, maybe I should keep this just in case. But I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I had built a life that looked secure on the outside and felt heavy on the inside. 2 days after that paper hunt, I tell myself, fine, just do a quick morning tidy and move on. It's a Tuesday, a little after 9, and the light in the living room is that flat gray light before noon. I start with one small goal. Grab one tool from the garage shelf so I can fix a loose cabinet hinge. 10 minutes, max. But to reach that shelf, I have to move a box of old cables. Behind that is a bin of holiday stuff. Next to it is a chair I kept for guests, covered in folders I meant to sort last year. I'm standing there with dust on my hands, reading labels from my own handwriting, and none of it has anything to do with the hinge. By the time I look at the clock again, it's almost lunchtime. 3 hours gone. The cabinet is still loose. The kitchen is messier than when I started. I'm tired, irritable, and honestly a little embarrassed. That was the moment I stopped saying, I have a lot of things, and started saying, I have a lot of obligations, because that's what it was. Not objects, obligations. Furniture to repair, papers to sort, equipment to maintain, things to move so I could reach other things. I used to call that being prepared. That morning it felt like being trapped in my own storage unit. And if your day feels full but strangely unproductive, this may be your life too. Not because you've lost discipline, not because you're slowing down. It can be pure friction from carrying too much infrastructure for the life you actually live now. That is real. Ignoring it doesn't make it pass. I read some decision research around that time and it hit me hard. Too many low-value decisions drain your mental energy before the important part of the day even starts. That explained why I was exhausted by noon, even on easy days. I could find old warranties faster than my reading glasses, but I couldn't find calm. I still slip, by the way. I still catch myself saying, maybe I should keep this just in case, especially with family things. But once I saw obligations instead of objects, I couldn't unsee it. And that's when the next question got very practical. Where exactly was my money leaking? That question changed everything for me. Not overnight and not in some dramatic, perfect way. It took me months to see the pattern, and I still mess it up sometimes. But I started noticing that the real drain wasn't one big expense. It was the structure of my daily life. What I was maintaining, paying for, searching for, and worrying about. So here's what I want to share with you. What I discovered step by step while I was in the middle of it. What actually reduced my monthly pressure. What helped me stop feeling mentally crowded all day. And what made the emotional part of letting go less brutal than I expected. Not empty room minimalism. Just a lighter suitcase for the years ahead. The shift for me didn't happen during some big clean-out. It happened on a quiet Thursday night around 8:30 with a medical appointment the next morning. I'm in the kitchen with 3 drawers open, old receipts on the table, instruction manuals sliding to the floor, and I still can't find one medication note I know I wrote down. I stand there holding an expired warranty for a blender I don't even own anymore, and I actually laugh because it's absurd and not funny at all. That's when this image landed in my head. I've been packing for the next decade like I'm allowed 3 giant suitcases, when in real life I'm carrying one, and my back already knows it. Not an empty suitcase, just one I can actually lift without straining every step. And I realized I wasn't protecting my life by keeping everything. I was delaying my life by carrying everything. I didn't announce a new philosophy that night. I just made one folder, labeled it critical, put the appointment papers there, and set a rule for myself. If an item adds weight but no real support, it doesn't get a free ride anymore. I still stumble with family things. I still have just-in-case moments. But that night was the line I can't unsee now. After that, letting go stopped feeling like loss and started feeling like risk control. So I gave myself 90 days, not to become a minimalist, not to live in an empty house, just to stop feeling like I was carrying a suitcase I couldn't lift anymore. The first 2 weeks were almost boring, and that was the point. Monday morning, coffee on the table, glasses sliding down my nose, and a cheap notebook open in front of me. I wrote every fixed cost tied to my stuff: storage, insurance on things I barely used, maintenance visits, utilities for space I wasn't really living in, little replacement buys I made because I couldn't find what I already owned. At first I was hunting for one big villain, one dramatic expense. But the real leak was quieter than that. It was monthly, predictable, constant. If your money seems to disappear even when you're careful, you're not imagining it. Those recurring commitments can drain you in plain sight. And once I saw that on paper, I had to admit something that hurt my pride a little. I was spending to maintain a version of life I wasn't living anymore. I read some household finance material around that time, including OECD discussions, and it kept repeating the same idea in different words. Recurring obligations create more long-term pressure than occasional spending mistakes. That matched my life exactly. Now, I know what some people are thinking because I thought it too. Nice, but selling a few things won't fix real problems. Fair. I expected a big one-time cash boost to magically calm everything down. That's not what happened. I sold an underused premium appliance and some duplicate furniture. And yes, the money helped for a minute. But the deeper relief came later, when the monthly bills attached to all that stuff started shrinking. The win wasn't a jackpot. The win was breathing room. And that brings me to the part nobody warned me about. I wasn't just tired of expenses. I was tired in my head. One evening, maybe 8:45, I'm in the kitchen with 3 drawers open again, papers everywhere, old manuals sliding around, and I need one medication note before an appointment the next morning. I can find an expired warranty for something I don't even own, but not the one note that actually matters. I sat down and did the smallest useful thing I could do. One folder labeled critical, then one digital backup. IDs, medical summaries, payment essentials, emergency contacts. That was it. Nothing fancy. But the next time I needed something, I found it in under a minute, and I felt my shoulders drop. Psychology calls this cognitive load. I call it the noise in your head when every surface is a reminder of unfinished tasks. If clutter makes you feel edgy and you can't explain why, that is real. Your brain treats unresolved cues like open tabs that never close. But this is where it gets even more personal, because we don't keep things only for practical reasons. We keep them because they hold people. I opened a hallway closet one afternoon and pulled out a box I had avoided for years. old work plaques, notebooks, gifts, a few inherited kitchen pieces wrapped in newspaper that smelled like someone else's house. I held one item and thought, if I let this go, am I erasing that part of my life? That's not a budgeting question. That's grief in plain clothes. So I stopped pretending emotion wasn't part of the process. I made one legacy box, not 10, one, for the items that still carried real meaning. For some others, I took photos and recorded short voice notes. Who gave it to me, why it mattered, what story lived there. Then I released duplicates. Not because the memories were fake, but because memory doesn't need 6 versions of the same object to survive. And if parting with an object feels like parting with a person or a former version of yourself, you are not irrational. You are human. Once I stopped fighting that truth, decisions got clearer. Not easy. Clearer. At my dining table, I put 4 labels on paper. Keep, release, convert, delay. Keep meant I use it weekly or it is deeply meaningful. Release meant not used in a year or more. Convert meant scan it, photograph it, archive the memory, not the bulk. Delay meant revisit in 30 days when my emotions cooled down. That last one saved me from both regret and paralysis. A friend came over for 2 afternoon sessions just to keep me honest. We worked in short rounds, maybe 25 minutes, then a break. No heroics. No marathon cleanout. 1 corner, 1 category. Done. We celebrated ridiculous wins, too. Look at us, 2 adults applauding because we found the dining table. It sounds silly, but that little humor kept us moving. And if you're thinking, at my age, change like this is exhausting, I agree. Big change is exhausting. That's why I stopped trying to do big change. What worked was low intensity, 15 to 30 minutes, 3 times a week, 1 category at a time. Progress small enough to repeat beats motivation big enough to collapse. By around week 9, I focused less on objects and more on setup. I restructured the space I actually lived in every day so I wasn't heating, cleaning, and mentally managing areas that were basically storage with walls. I automated essentials I used to handle manually every single month. I added 1 purchase rule. If it's not urgent, I wait 30 days. If I still need it, fine. If I forget it, that's the answer. That waiting rule felt annoying at first. Then it felt like freedom. Because I finally saw how many just-in-case buys were really anxiety buys. 3 months in, the changes looked ordinary from the outside. No dramatic before and after photos. But my week felt different. Fewer repairs, faster mornings, bills less chaotic, fewer surprise costs. I slept better because I wasn't running 10 background worries at 2 a.m. My emergency savings stopped quietly shrinking, and family conversations got easier too, because we weren't arguing as much about, what are we going to do with all this stuff someday? I want to be very clear about something though. This is not a perfect ending. I still stumble. I still pick up an old item and hear that voice. Maybe keep it just in case. I still hesitate the most with inherited things. Sometimes I delay too long. Sometimes I keep something and regret it later. Sometimes I release something and feel a sting for a few days. I say all this because if you only hear polished success stories, you'll think your messy middle means you're doing it wrong. It doesn't. What changed is not that I became ruthless. What changed is that I became intentional. I used to think security meant keeping more backups, more extras, more options, more things. Now I think security is having enough margin that 1 bad month doesn't knock you flat. Enough order that a normal Tuesday doesn't turn into a scavenger hunt. Enough energy left at the end of the day to call a friend, take a walk, say yes to dinner, or just sit quietly without that low-grade panic humming in the background. Healthy aging experts talk about autonomy and functional ability. Big words, simple meaning. Can you run your daily life without burning yourself out? Can you make choices instead of reacting to clutter, bills, and maintenance all day? That's the standard I care about now. So no, this wasn't me giving up. This was me protecting the next decade. Not an empty suitcase, a carryable one. If what you want most right now is not luxury but calm and choice, you are not lowering your standards. You are clarifying them. And once that clicks, the question changes. It's no longer how much can I keep? It's what kind of days do I want the next decade to contain? Where am I today with all this? Honestly, somewhere in the middle. Lighter than before, but not magically transformed. On most mornings now, I walk into the kitchen and I can actually see the counter. The papers that matter are in one place. Bills don't ambush me from random drawers. If I have an appointment, I'm not doing that old panic search at 10:30 p.m. with 3 cabinets open and my heart racing. That part got better. Really better. But here's the part I don't want to hide. I still get pulled back into old habits. I still pick up some object and hear that voice, "Keep it, you might need it." Last month I kept the duplicate tool I haven't touched in years. I knew better, and I still did it. So no, I'm not cured. I'm just more aware now. And some things still hurt. Inherited items are the hardest for me, every single time. I can sort old cables in 10 minutes. Family objects, that can take me a week. Sometimes I hold something and I'm not deciding about an object. I'm deciding how I want to carry a person I miss. That's a different kind of decision. What changed is that I stopped pretending those moments are irrational. They're human. If you feel that too, you're not broken. You're not weak. You're trying to honor your life while still making room to live it now. That tension is real. I also accept some imperfections on purpose now. There's one shelf in my hallway that still annoys me. It's not dangerous, just messy. Old notebooks, a camera case, 2 mystery chargers I'm suspiciously attached to. A few years ago, I would have called that failure. Now I call it unfinished, and I move on. Peace of mind didn't come from winning every corner. It came from no longer losing entire days. And I need to say this clearly, my way is one way, not the way. Some people downsize fast and feel great. Some do it slowly over years. Some keep more than I would and still live calm, organized lives. Different homes, different health, different family histories, different finances. We're not solving the same equation, even if the feeling is similar. So I don't have a grand formula. I have a working practice. When I feel that old heaviness coming back, I go small. 15 minutes, 1 drawer, 1 bill to automate, 1 item to release, 1 item to keep on purpose. That's it. Small actions are still my safety rail. If you're in a messy middle right now, I want you to hear this from someone still in his own messy middle. Progress counts even when it looks ordinary. A calmer Tuesday is progress. Finding 1 paper in under a minute is progress. 1 less recurring bill is progress. Sleeping through the night because your brain isn't tracking 20 unfinished tasks is progress. I used to think the goal was to finally get it all handled. I don't think that anymore. I think the goal is to stay in relationship with your life as it changes, instead of freezing it in place with stuff you're afraid to question. So today, I live with enough, not everything. I still stumble. I still reassess. I still let go in layers. But I'm no longer confusing heaviness with safety. And that, for me, is the mirror. Not perfection, just more honesty, more margin, and more say over how my days actually feel. When I think about where this started, I come back to that afternoon when I couldn't find one simple paper in a house full of things. I thought my money problem after 70 was inflation. It turned out to be weight. Not just on shelves, but on my mind, my calendar, my sleep. Now I still picture that suitcase. I'm still packing for the next decade, just differently. Not empty, not perfect, just carryable. Enough room for what supports my life now, and enough margin so one hard month doesn't knock everything sideways. That's the part that changed me most. I didn't lose my life when I released my things. I got my days back. So let me ask you something personal. What is one item you've kept for years that now feels more like pressure than comfort? Tell me in the comments. I read those, and your story might help someone else feel less alone in their own messy middle. And if this kind of honest conversation is useful to you, stay with me here. We're going to keep making this practical, human, and real.